decreases are done, it's time to Kitchener stitch or graft the toe together. Actually, we're going to graft the toe together with the Kitchener stitch. It's technically what we're about to do. Okay, so over here, I have done my very last slip knit on this side, which is technically the end of the round, but then I knit to the end. So then I did a slip knit here and I knit all the way to the end. So I have 10 stitches here, 10 stitches here, and if I flip it over, I have 10 on the cable here and 10 on the cable here. Now you can see that I have cut my yarn from the sock. So I've left a nice long tail here and I've cut it from the ball. And then I've got a tail over here too. All right, so we're going to turn this guy over just like this. And I have the yarn from the right sock on a darning needle. So let me get this needle in here too, because we're going to have both real close together here. All right, there we go. All right, so the Kitchener stitch has 4 steps. You do 2 steps on the front needle and then 2 steps on the back needle. Okay, so it goes front needle, back needle, back needle, front needle, back needle, back needle. So as we go, I'll put up on the screen the steps that we're doing. When you start, you do step 2 and then step 4. Then you do step 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 until you get to the last 2 stitches. Then you do steps 1 and 3. So you start with 2 and 4 and then you go through all the steps and then you end with 1 and 3. It can be a little bit confusing and I usually have to look it up every time, but this little diagram that I'll put on the screen usually helps me figure that out. Okay, so step number 1, whoa, hang on, let me grab this needle. Okay, so step number 1 is front needle, but we're going to start with step 2, which is also on the front needle. So we are going to insert as if to purl. That's what step number 2 is. So step 1 is insert as if to knit and slip stitch off, but step 2 is front needle, insert as if to purl and leave stitch on, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to pretend like this is a knitting needle, and I'm going to insert into this first stitch as if I was going to purl it. Okay, so I'm going to tuck it right in here to purl, and then I'm just going to pull it all the way through. Okay. Now, step 4 is back needle, insert as if to knit, leave the stitch on. So I'm just going to kind of bring this back needle here, and I'm going to pretend like I'm going to knit it, which is this way, and then I'm going to pull the yarn all the way through. Now, see how it got stuck around this needle? You're going to be playing this little fun game, like get over there. We don't want it to go around the needles, just between. Okay. All right, now we can go ahead and go through the steps. So step 1 is front needle, insert as if to knit, and then slip the stitch off. So I'm going to pretend like this is a knitting needle and like I'm knitting it, and I'm going to slip that stitch off. Now, step 2 is front needle, insert as if to purl, and leave the stitch on. So I'm going to insert into this stitch as if I'm going to purl, and I'm going to leave it under here. Now I'm going to bring the yarn underneath all of this to start working on the back needle. All right, so step 3, back needle, insert as if to purl. Here we go. This can be a little bit tangly, so just go nice and slow. So I'm going to kind of push this needle down so I can slip this one off. And then step 4 is back needle, insert as if to knit. See how I'm being careful because I don't want this one to slip off too. It's like, it's a fun little game you have to play with Kitchener. Okay, so we're tightening this up. Okay, insert as if to knit and leave the stitch on. So I'm going to insert as if to knit. And then I'm going to make sure all of this is down between the needles. Don't go over there. Leave the stitch on. All right, back to step 1. We're going to knit the first stitch, slip it off, purl the next stitch, leave it on. Okay, back needle. purl the first stitch. Carefully slip it off. Knit the next stitch on the back needle, leave it on. Back to the front needle. Knit the stitch on the front needle. Now, see when I'm pulling this, my yarn is getting all caught around down here. That's not a big deal. I like to kind of leave it a little loose and then straighten it out at the end. So we're going to slip this one off. Don't lose the back one. Or once you get it off, you can give it like a little tug, like that. Okay? All right, and then we're going to purl this stitch and leave it on. Then we're going to go to the back needle. We're going to purl the stitch in the back and slip it off very carefully, and then knit the last stitch. Keep it on. We're going to continue in this manner until we have 2 stitches left. All right, so I'm down to my last 4 stitches here, and you can see that my yarn from my previous color is hanging out there. That's fine, I'm just gonna ignore it. I'll tuck it in later. All right, so we are back to the front. Step 1 is insert as if to knit and slip that stitch off. So we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna slip the stitch off, and then we're gonna purl and leave this one on. Just like this. Then we're going to purl the stitch in the back, and we're going to purl that one off. Very carefully slide it off, and then we're going to knit the next stitch and leave it on. Okay, so you can't perform these steps any longer because we are out of stitches, so now we're going to do steps 1 and 3. So step 1 is on the front needle, knit and slip it off. So we're going to knit this stitch and get this out of here. Ta-da! Then we are going to do step 3, which is purl and slip off. So we're going to purl and then we'll slip it off. Oh my gosh, there's 1 sock to go. This one is free. Now let's take a quick look here at what we can see. This is kind of loose. See how big these pieces are? But if you look, they look just like knit stitches. You've really kind of curved them over the top, okay? So I like to do mine a little bit loose. I'm going to go ahead and remove my needle off of my yarn. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the start here of this. And I am going to just kind of, actually I'm going to use the eye. I'm going to kind of wiggle underneath here like this. See how it kind of pulls it tight over here? And then I'm going to just kind of go to the next one. And I'm going to give that a pull, just like that. So you can see that you can go across and wiggle these stitches. Just kind of find the loop that goes over the top, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then you can kind of tighten these guys up. See, now that one's going to tighten. And then I'm going to go next door, and I'm going to tighten this one right here. And then I'm going to go next door and tighten this one right here. So now you can see that I've tightened these over here, and the loop will get bigger and bigger and bigger as you get all the way to the end. Then you can pull on this and it will get rid of your loop, and you'll have a nice tight row of stitches just like that. And that is how you finish up your Kitchener stitch with the Love Socks. Thank you so much for joining us on this street along. We hope you have enjoyed it as much as I did. What I love about this particular pattern is you can make it vanilla with just a plain yarn or a variegated yarn or something that changes colors. And you can omit the color work if you want, or you can make up your own color work or do other stripes. If you love the fit of this sock, which I do, then you can pretty much use anything with it. So we appreciate you joining us, and hopefully we'll see you in the next street along. Thanks, guys.